What's the word? What's the word? So, what I want to talk about today is kind of changing the environment around you and the outcomes and the way people treat you and stuff like that. I talked about standards a while back, and I want to expand on that with things like the threshold and your principles, right? And this is the thing. This is the thing. A lot of people that I've had conversations with online and offline, they want certain things to be a certain way. They want to be a different person. They want people to treat them differently. They want this result, that outcome, and this thing to happen. And these things do happen randomly, but we don't want random over here. We want definite. So check this out. I'm going to use this example. Take a 16-year-old. Let's go back to 2012. Let's take a little trip back to 2012. Seems like it was forever ago, but it was like 10 years ago. Shit is crazy. Time just flies, man. But anyway, so take the 16-year-old, right? And they have a dream car or whatever. They want a Porsche. Now, in their mind, they can't even drive. They don't have a car. The thoughts in their head are, I don't have a car. I'll never even get a car. I'll definitely never get that Porsche. I'll never even make enough money to get that. Okay. Typical 16-year-old with, low self-esteem or whatever. Whatever. It happens. So check this out. Each year, 17, they turn 18, 19, 20, whatever, up until now, 2022, when they're 26. Let's say each year that same teenager, that 16-year-old had the same thinking pattern, never changed nothing about their thoughts. They still, ever since they were 16, they can't get that car or whatever. Or they can't get a nice car. Let's fuck a Porsche, because, fuck. Whatever car, a nice high end type of vehicle, not no hoopty, right? They always have this idea, man, I'll never get a nice car. I'll never make enough money to afford a nice car. I'm always going to be broke. I'm always going to be poor, right? You hold that mentality and those thoughts all the way until 26. Do you tell me? I want you to tell me. I want you to tell me, listener, what results is this person going to get? They will get the same results that they got when they were 16. Why? Because the way they're thinking, the thoughts that they're having. And this is the issue. A lot of people want different, but their thoughts never change. But it does change. It does change? Their actions. The actions change. The standards change. Your threshold goes all the way up and down and around. And your principle is not solid. Your principle, basically your foundation of who you are, what you want, your beliefs dictates your behavior and stuff like that, right? It's weak. You have a weak foundation, right? You got to be like Thanos, right? Like he knew his principles. Like I was reading this little thing. I'm gonna read it right now. So we all know, like, he, snapped his fingers and half of the population and I guess the universe, they disappeared. They're gone. Now, it was like, some fucked up shit. Like, I'm not saying that was like the smartest thing to do. There are other ways to handle the population. But I guess that was the easiest way. Just handle everything in one snap, just knock it out. But anyway, so it says, regardless of how ill-conceived his plan was, at the crux of it is a desire to minimize suffering on a massive scale. One could say that Thanos acted on a maximizing principle that sought to minimize suffering. This roughly falls under the purview of a normative ethical position called negative utilitarianism. Now, right here, it shows you his principles. His principle was that he wanted to minimize suffering for all mortals or whatever. And this is the only way, as messed up as it was, this is the only way he saw it. He was so stuck in his principles, his standards for how he wanted things to be. He didn't care how bad his plan was. He even sacrificed his own daughter. But this was, a lot of people don't accomplish this way of thinking. I'm not saying You should go out and kill people and eliminate the competition by any means necessary or whatever. Like you got to be smart, and there's other ways around stuff. I'm not saying don't be strategic and think about your actions before you do them, but what my point is, the conviction that Thanos had was like, this is what I want, and if you get in my fucking way, you're gone. This is my standard for how I want things, and if you are not even, if you're not matched up with those standards, and you got to be perfect. Everything ain't perfect. You know, you could warn people and school people and tell them, look, this is how things are gonna be, or show people through your actions, look, this is how things are gonna be. But if they're not like that, it has to be like Thanos, where you snap a finger and then you're going straight to what you want. It has to be that in control, man. A lot of people don't have that. A lot of people's standards change. A lot of people's standards change with the environment because their principles are not solid or rooted in anything. They want a lot, like people will want something or an outcome, but can't even explain or articulate why they want that thing. You see what I'm saying? So therefore, they have no foundation in this. They just want it because of like other people's outcomes. They just want it because of other people's outcomes they saw, or their environment changing, or whatever environment they put themselves into or they get into, which was all by accident because they have no standards in the first place. And this is the issue. When you don't have any standards, or your standards are very flimsy, you're going to be put in situations or end up in situations that are unfavorable to you because your standards and principles are so weak, and therefore you don't know your threshold. You go into the gym and you try to deadlift, you try to bench press, 200 pounds, but your threshold is 175 pounds. You jump straight into the 200. You don't know your threshold. You just throw that on there. You might hurt yourself. That is literally what happens in everybody's life. Not everybody, but most people's lives who can't achieve what they want. There's barrier there where they can't look inside them and fix work on the principles to find out their threshold, and then work on and actually come up with real standards. Like if you have, it's people out there on the standards, and they want to be treated respectfully, but they don't respect themselves. A lot of people out there, a lot of us suffer from this. We got family who treats us like shit, right? It could be a loved one, your wife or your grandma, your aunt, your sister, your cousin, your brother, whatever. They treat you like shit for so long. But then you see them treating the next person with nothing but respect. But you feel like, oh, that person didn't earn that respect, blah, blah, blah. Why they treat them like this and me like this? Since since that person has no respect for themselves, they continue to put up with the bad behavior that they don't want. They obviously have a standard. Their standard is that they want people, and especially people in their family, to treat them well, right? But when they don't, and they accept it, they don't want the person treating them bad to have accountability for their actions. They just accept it. They keep breaking their neck for this person or people and putting themselves out there for that person or people. So therefore, when that happens, your standards are weak and flimsy. You're not standing on those standards. You're not that representation. Like think of standards like this. It's a representational model in your mind of what you want. Like all females, guys, or whatever, we have a representation of like the person of what we want them to look like and be like and act. Most of us do. If you don't, then you need to form that. You need to find out, or you have a vision in your mind of how much money you want. You should be able to see a number of how much money, when you wake up in the morning, how much money do you want to see in your bank account when you wake up and you open up your bank account online, check your balance or whatever, or make a transfer. You should have an idea of what you would like to see in there, even if it's not in there. Even if you don't have the perfect whatever you see, guy or girl or whatever, or car or anything, you have to, that representation has to be constant. Now you can work on it a little bit. You can change it. Your standard can go up and down. You can remove certain things from the standard. Like, let's say I wanted a girl who was at least who was a blonde. You know, what if she's blonde but she has a shitty personality, a shitty attitude, right? Now, what if I see that will change? Now, I will favor the good personality if she's brunette, even though my standard is blonde. That standard of blonde hair will change if what is more important, which is the better personality, how she treats me, is more important than the blonde hair. You see what I'm saying? So standards could change in that way. I grew up like my dad was in the military, so it was very cleanly. It was everything had to be in order as I grew up. That's called a foundation right there, and a little that's a standard. Well, it's a standard, but since it started when I was so young, I see that as my foundation. Like cleanliness is next to godliness in my head. All I believe in that 100%. So that's my foundation. Things need to be clean around me. So if I start hanging out with a messy person and I don't check them on that or whatever, or because I'm scared that they're gonna go away or whatever. If I check them on there, because their foundation is like messiness. They don't have their principle is like being messy or whatever. They don't really care about cleanliness. They don't see it the same way I do. If I put myself around that person continually, eventually their principles are gonna over. If their principles are stronger than my principles, then they're gonna overcome me, and I can't have that. I mean, you just got to have a Malcolm X mentality. No matter what, you got to go for what you want. Even though at the end, Malcolm X, he doubled back. He realized that, there was a lot of mistakes in his actions. And that's what forming your standards and your threshold is all about. It's about actually being able to recognize mistakes and kind of take a step back and then kind of go back in the studio and remix that shit. That's what it's all about right there. So, yeah, man, I hope I made myself clear on this one. And I'm gonna wrap it up here because I don't like to drag on too long with this. But yeah, we're gonna end it on that note. So yeah, y'all just stay tuned. I'm out.